Hello, chart watchers, and welcome to Market Watchers Live with Aaron Swenlin, and today, Greg Schnell. I'm your host, Aaron Swenlin. Today's show is being recorded, so you can play back any or all of the Market Watchers Live shows at your leisure, and you can do that by going either to our Facebook page for Market Watchers Live or to the YouTube channel for Stockcharts. Additionally, the most latest webinar will be under the Webinars tab, where you found yourself right now to watch the show live. During today's show, please feel free to submit ticker symbols and questions and comments using the chat window, which is next to the live video player. And later in today's show, Greg's going to provide me with stock symbols from your questions, and I'm going to use your requests to analyze 10 charts in 10 minutes at 12:50 Eastern Standard Time. I will attempt this. We'll have to see if I can make it in 10 minutes. But I did want to let you know I will be giving it a little bit more of an intermediate term look. So other than, Tom normally does that short term. Market Watchers Live now airs on Monday through Friday from noon to 1:30 Eastern. If you want to be part of the show, again, you can reach us via our chat room or Twitter at our handle, which is at MKT Watchers Live, at MKT Watchers Live. As you leave today's show, we'd love to hear your feedback. In the lower right portion of your screen, you should see a How Do We Do section with a link to a one-question survey just to let us know how we could improve the show or what you liked. And then for those of you joining us for the first time today, welcome. We're very glad you're here. And for our regulars, you know who you are. Welcome back. So let's go ahead and get started. Greg, you're out there in Canada, correct? What's going on?
That is true. Things are busy. We're getting ready for the holiday season. So we've had, and my birthday's this week, so we have dinner guests just about every day this week. So it's a great week. We're enjoying things, and the market's kind of behaving. The TSX hit new highs today, so that's all good.
Absolutely, and we'll go ahead and get right into that. I'll give you some announcements right now. Our upcoming schedule. Tomorrow, Arthur Hill is going to join me. Tom will still be out, but he will fill in nicely, I am sure. Friday, Tom will be back, and he will do a workshop on price support and resistance. So today's agenda, what do we got on tap for you today? I'll be doing market updates at the top of each hour. And then we have a special guest, and he's going to talk to us about everything stock charts. I won't ruin the surprise on what he's going to talk about. Greg, since we do have him, he's going to do a really great presentation for us on the copper and mining stocks. So be sure that you are around at 12:30. And then following that is that 10 and 10 to 1. And the first stock I'm going to look at is Abbott Laboratories, ABT. So if you want to take a peek at that chart before we get to the 10 and 10, take your own notes, and you can see if you agree with what I have to say about it later. And then we're going to do a scooter movers report and let you know what's going on with the scooter report, how to get to it, and which stocks seem to be the big movers today. Finally, we'll finish up with mailbag and wrap up and answer any questions that have come up in that live chat box. So feel free to post those in there. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with our first market update. All righty. First, I'm going to look at our headlines, and those you can find under the predefined alerts box on your member homepage. And we had three very important new alerts. The Russell 2000 managed to cross back above 1525. I'll go ahead and look at that chart shortly, as well as the S&P 500, which hit a new all-time high. And we can see that also the TSX has hit hit a new all-time high today. So let's go ahead. I'm going to show you the chart for the Russell 2000 very quickly here. And what we can see, I would say, is a symmetrical triangle here that's ready to pop. If it doesn't, I would say the triangle is pretty much dead at that point. But triangles are, the symmetrical triangle is usually a continuation pattern. So actually, we should be expecting that breakout to the upside. Although I have to say, looking at a PMO that just went on a sell signal, that does leave me a little bit concerned. Let's look at the S&P 500, which also hit a new all-time high today. And we can see, yes, indeed, we hit that all-time high, that pop up higher. Look at our PMO. It's rising nicely. It's now risen above previous tops. So we're seeing some really great momentum here. If you notice, we're not having any, we're not seeing any negative divergences at this point. So it's looking pretty good at this point. And you can see how we did get that breakout to the upside. And then the final one, let's look at the TSX. Oops, not that one. Give this a try again. Can't type today. All right, here we go. So an interesting look too for the TSX. There you can see, of course, that new all-time intraday high that was set. We'll have to see if it can close above previous closing highs. Look at the PMO though, looking really nice. It's bottomed, it's heading higher. I would expect an upside breakout. You could make a case for a double bottom, but because we're already in a rally, you really shouldn't be looking for double bottoms. They're not continuation patterns, they're typically reversal patterns. So really what we're looking at is a trading range, and we've now busted out of it to the upside. And with that PMO bottoming and heading toward a positive crossover, it's looking pretty good for the TSX at this point. And with that, I will close out our first market update. And I'm going to invite Greg Schnell back here to talk to us about the copper and mining stocks.
Actually, I think we were going to go to Bill first, weren't we?
Oh, my goodness. You are exactly right. I'm getting ahead of myself. Bill, you out there?
I am. How are you?
I'm good. I was going to skip right over you.
But I did all this work.
I know. So with that, I will pass it to you, Bill. And Greg, you still have time. You can get ready.
All right. Let's see if we can get this screen up and going here. Okay. All right. Yes, today, so I'm going to talk about a feature that we put out a few weeks ago. And it's one that I've been wanting to see for quite a long time. So I'm quite excited that it's finally out and people can use it. And we're calling it the chart list panel. It's another panel that's available in the members area dashboard. And as you can see, the bulleted list here, we're going to talk about just how to turn it on, what we can do about selecting lists and views, and the standard table features, and then some of the common use scenarios that I think are the most applicable to how we've rigged this up. So we're going to go over to our browser. So this is our standard dashboard here. And if in the upper right screen here, you can see our little gear setting, and that allows us to see which rows we want to turn on and off. So there's a new option there called chart list panels. So we'll just turn that on, and then you'll see now we've got two, essentially, they're mini summary views. They're very similar to the summary view if you're familiar with that, although not quite as much information. What we'll do initially when you first turn this on is we'll just grab your first two chart lists and display those. Then you can change them as you wish. So we've got our standard features. We've got a link here to whatever the chart is for the symbol. You can click that. We've got our floating mini charts if you hover over the symbol, which is another new feature that we put out a couple of months ago. We've got 10 rows in each of these, so they're a little bit smaller, and so you'll have pages as necessary. And like our summary tables and most of our other tables, you can see we can sort in various directions to grab those. So that's all very similar to most of the tables that you've seen before. We also have a feature up here that since this is a chart list, we can go do all of our normal things that we expect to do with chart lists. If we want to see the full summary view, we can go to that. We can go to market carpets, chart books, anything there. We can go to edit the list if we want. So all of our normal list options that we have in the section below as well, are available to us here. So one of the things you can tell here is that since we're not quite in the same view as the summary mode has a lot more higher level things such as scooters, sectors, industries. It's got multiple time frames. So it's sort of you can sort of think of the summary view as a little bit more research mode. You can look at multiple time frames and larger views, like I said, such as sectors and industries. You can sort by sectors and industries and all those sorts of things. This view is a little bit more geared for just price and typically just current pricing. So we don't have the ability to look at past history data here. We're pretty much just what's going on right now. And what we do, and to switch lists here, we got this other little gear setting up in the top. And we can go there, and now I've already sort of given away what I use this for with my cleverly named lists here. This is something that I've wanted for literally ages. Ever since we were bantering around this idea of a dashboard. I mean, we've got our section up top, which we can see all sorts of views of the market. We can tell alerts, we can see the signals, we can see scooters, we can see all sorts of high level things. But the one thing that I always missed about this was, what is my stuff doing? You know, if I own something, is it going up today? Is it cratering today? Should I be worried? And I could go to the summary page to do that, but I just wanted something I could go here very quickly and see what's going on. So that was sort of the impetus for this. Internally, Grayson and I, who helped put this together, we call this the portfolio watch list feature. But you can put any list in here. It is geared towards smaller lists. So you can pick a list, any of your lists, and you can have up to 500 charts. You'll have up to 50 pages at 10 rows per page. So it's not really designed for researching and going through big lists. It's designed for relatively small lists, which we think most people's portfolios and watch lists are going to be on the smaller side, maybe 30, 40 items or so. So what I usually do is I want to sort of see what performance is going on. So I usually turn around and rank it by performance. Full disclosure, I don't know if I own any of these stocks. So these are just things I threw in here. So there's no commentary on any of these symbols. They're just filler. So every day, what was that?
You saved that for us.
Yeah, you look good, Lulu.
Hey, I just, it's my yoga streak there. So I go in every day and I've got my list rigged so I can see what my top performer is doing, and then I can page through and go all the way from my top performer to my worst. If you were more interested in seeing if anything you own today happens to be cratering, you can simply reverse the order, and you'll see every day what your biggest loser is of the day, just to make sure that there's nothing horrible going on. You can use this a lot with this feature. I was on the show about 3 weeks ago or so, and we put out a new feature called price alerts. This can work very similar with price alerts to really keep a view of what's going on. But if you've got 30 or 40 stocks in your portfolio, it may not be really applicable or easy to put price alerts on everything. I mean, you kind of want to keep an eye on everything, but you don't, maybe price alert for every single symbol you own is a little bit of overkill. It's a little bit onerous to keep it up. So this is just a quick way for you to be able to page through very quickly and see exactly what is going on with everything you own. I do the same over here for my watch list to be able to view that. The watch list I use for things I'm looking to buy, maybe things I own that I'm looking to sell. There's all sorts of other ways you can put things into your watch list, for example. So say you're looking at a stock, any old stock on the workbench, and say, wow, this is like an interesting, we're on the air. Stock. So I want to save this, but I kind of want to keep an eye on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it into my watch list. And I'm just going to change the name there. I can add new, go back to members, and scroll down. And now Boeing is in my watch list. So if you're on the workbench and you've run across something that's kind of interesting, and you're really going to kind of keep an eye on it, you can easily just save it to whatever your watch list chart list is, or whatever you want to call it, and it'll display here. So that's one way that's easy to quickly get a stock on there. Another one that I use quite frequently is to go over to the view as, and we said we could go to any of the features, so I can easily go down to edit. And if I decide, well, there's some other stock that I think is really interesting, I can just go there quickly and add the chart, go back to my members page. And now Ford is there. So another use that you may have is maybe you've got something that you own that you kind of want to keep an eye on, and you want to put it, maybe in my case, my watch list is generally smaller than my portfolio sort of list of stocks. So say, for example, Ford is something I own, and I know that Ford's coming out with earnings this week, and well, maybe if they do really well, I'll think about buying some more. I could put a price alert on it, and I could say, well, I'll put a price alert higher than Ford because in case it's a good earnings release and it pops, and I could put another price alert in case it misses earnings and it tanks. Or I can just put it on my watch list and just have a really short list of things that I'm interested in seeing. Maybe they're not necessarily things I want to buy or sell. It's just anything. It's sort of a little microscope of the stocks you're really interested in seeing, and you want to see them all the time. So that is pretty much just a wrap up of the chart list panel. Like I say, it's part of we just saw a refresh, so it refreshes every minute. You'll have a nice up-to-date view of everything you own and everything and potentially you want to own. That's what I think is the common use case. That's what we were striving for when we put this together. But of course, you can put any list up there and just keep an eye on whatever you like. So that is basically the chart list panels. I don't know if we've got any questions coming through or not.
It's always can I get this? Can I get that? Rather than asking questions about what you have.
Right. I will just say that to clarify that this is an extra or a pro feature. This isn't available on basic. Basic only has one list, of course. So this is something you need an extra or pro account in order to access, but it's available. The chart list panel is off by default. So you have to go up and hit that settings button to turn it on, but everybody has access to it.
Yeah. Could you review that one more time, Bill? Just
Sure.
how to turn it on.
So we'll go up to the upper right here. We've got our little gear box there. It's turned green now. We'll just click that, and then we can turn on and off any of our panels here. Like say, I usually don't have the additional data row panel. I just sort of keep my scans and alerts and my chart list panel, so I can turn those on and update, and that will turn on this new row.
Perfect.
That's it.
So, nice touch. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, that was excellent. I know everybody likes to, one of the question was if we're going to have a seasonality report page or something. I know Tom talks a lot about seasonality. I'm sure he begs you all the time for new features like that.
I have a begging list from, I think, each of you.
Yes, that is true. It's a constantly growing list every time. But then every now and then we get surprised and see something we were talking about. So.
It is. And even this feature, I can sit down and come up with about 5 or 6 other little things I'd like to add to it. But yeah, so we sort of just have to come up with the big things, and then we'll kind of add some little embellishments here and there. But yeah, I think this is a very useful feature for people to be able. It's just another way to really stay in touch with what's going on without spending a lot of time doing it, which is what I'm all about.
I think we all are. I think we all need that extra.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's got time to burn these days.
Yeah, I know. I've really been loving the new member dashboard and having the ability to, really customize it to the way I like. Because of course it has the DP signals now, those boards that I can get to right from this member homepage before you had to go hunt for it unless you read my articles. Right.
That was the idea of the whole dashboard, is to try and get as much as possible on one screen, so you can very quickly switch between things without having to run all over. So it's coming together. We've got a few more ideas, but this is progressing nicely, I think.
Yes. Anything you can tease us with about a future?
Nothing specific. We're kind of, we've kind of going to let the dust settle on this. We've put a lot of updates out here in the last 3 or 4 months. We're going to kind of let people give us some feedback and then sort of come back in a little while and maybe put a few extra things. The little things that I'd like to see is, maybe we can tie some alerts in. It'd be really nice to be able to click on Boeing and say, hey, I want to do a price alert for Boeing, and just have it go to the price alert. So those are some things that I'm thinking that would be nice to do. No clue when that's going to happen. So
we never really know, but
that's full disclosure. That's not even in the pipeline yet. But those are the sorts of things that we're trying to continue to pull some of the features together and allow you to do things across the site. You know, like maybe set up an alert from the workbench and things like that. So we're constantly thinking of ways to speed these sorts of processes up.
right. And I know that helps us all save some of that time in the mornings. Well, this is great. Were there any questions? Let's see. There are some people who are having a little bit of trouble with that chart list panel, but what you need to do is if you are having problems with it, be sure and let our customer service folks know. I can't really help you right now in the live chat box, and neither can Bill. So your best bet is to get in touch with them if you're having any issues.
Just send something to customer support. They can help you out.
Exactly. They love hearing from everybody. Well, the nice stuff anyway. Well, I really appreciate it, Bill. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to talk about our show.
No, that's pretty much it.
All right. Excellent. Well, I do have a few. I didn't look at the candle glance, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And the economic calendar as well. We did have some reports coming out that I want to show you where you can get to them. Mainly, I think that's your best bet. So let's go ahead and get to our candle glance here. All right, and so this is that member homepage, and over here in the control center, this is where you'll find that candle glance where you get all those mini charts all side by side. And really the market, as we alluded to earlier, is certainly doing quite well. We had a gap up on the Dow, and it is still moving higher, making new intraday highs, all-time highs, I might add, for the S&P 500. Which is also continuing higher in a really nice trend. We're not even seeing much in the way of a pullback or a consolidation yet on the S&P 500 as it heads straight up. NASDAQ opened lower, did manage to get into positive territory, but it's already rounding off and trying to head back toward the negative. So Russell 2000, very similar look with that rounded top. Doesn't look good for those. You don't want to see those on your charts. We'll have to see if they can turn themselves back around. And Wilshire 5000, looking just like the S&P 500, of course, and making new intraday highs. You can see treasury yields are rising at this point. There is a Fed meeting. The Fed meeting is starting today, and we should get the announcements tomorrow as to what they're planning on doing regarding the bond by the QE when they bought all the bonds. Now we're going to find out a little bit about how are they going to drop those into the market again. Commodities having a very difficult day, likely on the heels of the USO oil, which is dropping very quickly. It's now making intraday lows and does appear to be ready to head lower. Gold in the negative, but it does look like it's trying to turn itself back around. UUP did gap up and it is starting to round off pretty much in conjunction with gold as it has a rounded bottom here. We can see the VIX is mostly unchanged now. Did rise somewhat, but we're still in that 9 to 10 range, which is still showing some complacency in the market. Not anybody particularly scared right now. We can see declines are leading advances right now. I'm going to take you to the Bloomberg calendar, and I'm not trying to, give them a plug or anything, but this is where you can find those economic reports that Tom always talks about on the Bloomberg site. So right now, as you can see, we've got the FOMC meeting that started, as I told you earlier. We had the small business optimism come in at 107.5, and the market was expecting 104.4. So that's good to see small business optimism rising. We also had the PPI come in here, and we can see that at this point, all of the actuals looks like we are running about the same or higher. So that is a good sign for the market right now. So they are, as it says, we are seeing some hints of inflation starting to appear in the producer prices. And finally, There's also, of course, we saw the red book. We've got the 4-week bill auction, but this is where you would go to find those, is on the Bloomberg site. And let's see here, see if I can get there immediately for you. Find it, because I have it bookmarked, which is what I would recommend that you have it bookmarked as well. So go to markets, right over here to economic calendar, and there you go. So that's where we get all of our information as far as what the current economic reports are saying. So that's the way you get there. And let me go ahead. I'm going to head back to our homepage. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and look at what's going on in our top 10 as far as the Dow and the S&P 500. So right now you can see what the most active. We've got some financials in here with B of A, GE, AMD, all on the most actives currently right now. But I think what's interesting is seeing who has the highest percent gains right now in the S&P 500. And we can see that STX right now is having the biggest move. And I'm going to just pull that chart up. Isn't that great? We can just click on it and then get to the chart. Nice breakout here that we're seeing above this area of overhead resistance. And if you notice, I'm going to annotate this real quickly because I always like to, I'm the chart pattern girl here. So look at this. We've got a nice straight top here, and then bring it up here, and you've got a nice ascending triangle. And that, of course, is a bullish pattern. So the expectation would have been a breakout at that time. Notice also we had that 50-200-day EMA positive crossover. So if you all recall, we're looking at a bull market configuration as far as our decision point analysis is concerned. So honestly, if I had seen this chart back here when the PMO had started to turn up, I certainly would have had some interest in seeing what was going to happen with this. At this point, though, we're now reaching overhead resistance right around these tops. So if we get the close and the breakout above this area, let me make this straighter. There we go. Not quite there. It's right now tapping on that ceiling. So, and you can even drag this out and see that we have this bottom back here too that matches up with that kind of a support levels, overhead resistance. So that was one of our big movers. And let's go back to our home page because I want to show you one other thing here. So we have the top 10, the S&P 500. These are the percent up. Now, Bill showed you, if you hover over the symbol, you get a mini chart. But if I wanted to see all of these, Candle Glance is available. And here you go. This is on my Decision Point account. And so my Candle Glance is a 1-year chart. So it looks different than what you'll get for the default. But if you have a certain way you want to look at your Candle Glance, all you have to do is go into your chart styles. So if you just click on any one of these, all right, and you set it up exactly the way you want. So you've got, all of the range, everything. So think about what I want my little Candle Glance chart to look like, and you set it all up. And once you do, all you have to do is name it Candle Glance. And when you name that chart style Candle Glance, when you call up those Candle Glance charts, you're going to see your setup here. So that's an excellent way to, be able to see everything all on one page, similarly to what we're looking at right now. So, these are the big movers right now. I'm looking at these PMO Crossover Buy Signals. Those are looking good. We're seeing PMOs reaching above the 0 line. That's also good. But we also have some of these right here, like Cody, with an overbought PMO. And it is still rising. And what I would note here is that is like that looks like a rising wedge, and that is a bearish pattern. And I would have expected that to have executed given the 50-day is below the 200-day. However, if you looked at this PMO and it's rocket ship higher, it shouldn't be a big surprise that we did get this breakout, but look at where it came in too, at this gap resistance level. So that gap resistance level is now support. So very interesting move here on Cody. And with that, you know what, Greg, I'm going to give you an extra minute or two, and you can give us that update on the copper and mining stocks.
Okay. I will take the screen and we will move on to my keynote here. Okay, so what I wanted to do today with metals and mining, I know every now and then I get on and I just kind of talk about some of the stocks, but I'm not a big fundamental person, but I do like to have themes when I invest. And one of the themes for metals and mining, the different types of metals and mining currently is copper. And so I want to work through that and explain why that might be a reasonable thing to look for. So first of all, there's a big discussion about the electrification of cars, having us drive with electric vehicles instead of gas-powered vehicles. So first of all, I'm going to set the stage, then I'm going to temper your optimism, and then we're going to get into the charts. But I just want to point out a couple of things here. So electric vehicles need roughly 4 times the amount of copper that a regular car does. So a regular car needs about 50 pounds of copper. An electric vehicle needs about 200. So one of the things that's interesting is when you manufacture a battery, it releases 150 to 200 kilograms. That's 400 to 500 pounds of CO2. So a Tesla Model S generates 17.5 tons of CO2 before using electricity. So that's just to build the battery. Anyway, so Tesla battery production releases as much CO2 as 8 years of gasoline driving. And that's from the Swedish Environmental Research Institute. So, and I'm not trying to downplay it. I'm just trying to put some facts on the table about, why there might be some friction on copper going forward. But anyway, there's lots of good reasons. But recently, Tesla came out with a new truck. And I used to sell fuel to the trucking business for Shell. So that was part of my job description. I was in what was called commercial road transport. A Tesla truck hauling 800,000 pounds, they want it to go about 500 miles on a charge. And so when it came out, they said they'd need 375 kilowatt hours to travel 500 miles. Other math by this Carnegie Mellon study suggests they would need more than 1,000 kilowatt hours to travel 500 miles. The battery size would weigh 22 tons, which is heavier than the remaining payload. It would be a little more than 50% of the total truck weight. The current charger systems are set up for 0.6 megawatts, and a truck this big would need 2 megawatts to charge in 30 minutes. So the truck would require at least 3.5 or 4 times one of those 0.6 megawatt chargers. And we don't have one invented yet. So even if you used 4 of the smaller ones, it would be $2 million for one charging station that would charge up these truck batteries in 30 minutes. So there's a few holes in the whole electric vehicle for long distance. Now, overnight charging, it's a much better picture. I do want to get into just at a gasoline level what we're talking about here. So every station on a highway, let's call it 50 miles apart, that has 16 pumps on the islands, a current fast charger would put out about 50 kilowatts. You'd need 1,000 charging stations to keep up, and that would be 2 hours of charging per vehicle. So not really practical, actually. And you'd need 60 chargers to replace one pump. So if you could fill on either side of that pump, you'd need 120 charging units to get to the same level, and that would require 2 hours of charge. These smaller chargers are $40,000 each, but the new chargers that would give you fast charging would be a lot bigger, and they're about $200,000 each. So real rough, you need about 100. You need 130, but just do the math real rough. You need about $20 million a site to set up all of the chargers. Each site would need 30 megawatts of power, which would be equal to 20,000 homes, and that would be $30 million in solar panels. So to build a new gas station would be about $50 million, not including building asphalt or anything else. So
wow.
There's work to do before we go fully electric. Now, that said, we still need copper, and we need copper for a bunch of different reasons. And one is that as we electrify the home to put charging stations in our garage, we need all of the copper for that. We need the charging stations in the garage. We will probably need to upgrade our grid connections in a lot of the housing from 100 amp to 200 amp. So there's huge demand set up for copper. And again, I think electric vehicles are coming, and right there we need 4 times the amount. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk about copper today is I think it all sets up very well for the future. And, sometimes we're talking about the trade for that morning or that afternoon. I'm just trying to set the stage for 2018 and why some of these companies look really, really good. So we're going to cover off some of these copper companies. The big 5 ones are in the U.S. with listings. There's some more on over the counter, like Glencore is a big commodity company. It's over the counter. So there's Teck Resources, FCX, Rio, BHP Billiton, and Vale. So Brazil, Australia, Arizona, and Canada. So there's a lot of small juniors, and I'm really not a big proponent of talking about $1 stocks, but a lot of these stocks were $8 stocks when the markets were back in 2011, and after 6 years of getting crushed, they've all become sub $10 stuff. So there's a lot of value there if this mining revival turns on. So a couple of things going on here. So if you wanted the ETF for copper, it's JJC, just to trade copper. There's also COPX, which I should have written on here, is a copper miners ETF that you could follow. There's 2 other things that are required in this copper or in the electrification of vehicles is lithium. So that's a big one. Rare earth metals, there's cobalt, zinc, there's a whole bunch of other things that we need. So all of these raw earth metals, not rare, but raw earth metals are important, but nobody wants a new mine. But the bottom line is, in order to get to electric vehicles, we need all of these rare earth metals or raw earth metals to actually build the batteries. So that's why I'm so kind of upbeat on copper. Is we need just to make one car, we need 4 times the copper in that car. We're going to put charging stations in our garage, which means you need to run probably new wiring to the garage, or if not, you're going to be on a 110 charger and probably need 12 hours to charge the car. So you'll need fully overnight. If you can go to 220 volt, then you can charge up quite a bit quicker. So anyway, all that to say, I put new copper in a raw garage, and I wired it up, a brand new garage, and I spent about $750, and that's when the walls were open and the garage was brand new. So there's quite a bit of money that's going to end up going into this whole copper thing. And if your kid's an electrician, they're going to make a lot of money in the future. Okay, so some of the stocks, and we're just going to get into this list, but I've printed it out as a one screenshot, and then I briefly want to show you how to what I did, and I did this in under 20 minutes this morning. Just went through and built a specific copper chart list. So I'll show you how to do that. But FCX is breaking out today. It was on Aaron's biggest movers list today. Teck and Vale are both looking pretty good. A lot of the copper companies, like if you pull up the different mining sites, and I'll show you one site that kind of lists off all these different types of miners, about 80% or 90% of the stocks are listed in Canada and about 10% in the US. So as an example, there was 4 US copper stocks and about 50 Canadian copper stocks, just to give you a feel. So there is First Quantum Minerals. This is anyway, I'll get into the exact charts just because listing these off won't help you any. But the big thing here is that Freeport-McMoRan looks very good. Southern Copper looks pretty good. And all of these others, they're at support. So you could trade against support. You're buying it close to support, not a breakout, whereas Freeport-McMoRan is more on the breakout. Lundin Mining had a slide at one of their mines, and so it fell. The chart was beautiful till they had a mine slide. But anyway, so the point I want to make here is let's switch over to the chart page and bring those up now. Okay, so here we have, where all of a sudden I've lost my commodity chart list. Okay, so down here what I've done is I've gone in and I've made a cart. Gee, let me fix this once here. Okay.
A lot of chart lists.
I've made a chart list for copper, and it should be hiding in here if I spelt it right. I don't see it. Why don't I see it? I have lithium. That's really, really odd. Copper mining. There we go. I put a hyphen in the wrong place. Okay, so what we've got here is to edit this list. If you want to put these numbers in it, and the numbers help control the order, and there was a question on the chat box, so that's why I'm going to cover this off very briefly. But in the when you want to order these either by scooter ranking or whatever, so let's just say you go to the summary page. On the summary page, you have all of these columns that you can sort by. On the edit page, you don't. So, but in order to change the title names, you need to use the edit page. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to edit the list, and we're going to remove these numbers from the front. And when we remove these numbers, we're just going to go down here and click. Oh, sorry, I didn't select anything, so I need to select them all. And now remove numbers from them all. Okay, and then you go to the summary page. And now what we want to do on the summary page is we want to choose our sort order. So let's say that we want whatever price or scooter would kind of be the sort order. So if it after I don't have a scooter listing anymore, maybe it'll give me price, and at least I can sort down, because I really don't want to look at too many penny stocks. But you know, I could have added another 30 stocks here, but they all traded 10 and 15 cents. That's not really kind of where I like to choose my investment window. So I like to stay up with these larger ones, but I want to put it out here so that you're aware of the differences. And with all of this, once we have it set up like this, now what we want to do is just scroll right to the bottom of the chart list, and it says number in sorted order. And when we do that, that's going to allow us to see the first scooter, the stock with the strongest scooter first, and it puts these numbers right in here. So we can check it out. And then obviously the scooter's declining, so we're going to see the stock charts start to kind of look weaker as we go. Now we can go into 10 per page. And this Katanga Mining is obviously having a good week, running up quite nicely. It was up 36% earlier this morning. It's now up 58%. But this chart's basically been on fire since the beginning of the year. Here is Amerigo Resources, and we can see it broke above resistance right around 80 cents. It's up over a buck. The scooter just started, so that's why. And it doesn't get a scooter ranking unless it's over $1 in Canada. Taseko Mines, this one is copper and gold. A lot of times when you mine for gold, you get copper, or when you mine for copper, you get gold. And so depending on which metal's hotter, they'll report their earnings with, this is my gold cost or this is my copper cost, and transfer some of the cost structure to the, I'll call it the other metal. But the bottom line is this is still an uptrend. There's a pullback within an uptrend, and I would say it's pretty much sitting at support here around 250, and looks like it might want to try and go a little higher. Whoops, one too many there. And first, Quantum Minerals, you know, this is a beautiful 3-year base here, just setting up here. It's right near the top of the range. We saw Freeport-McMoRan is breaking out this morning. That's our next chart. And so this is just starting to poke up to new 52-week highs or 40-week highs, very close to a big major breakout. Scooter's up around 93. Price action's beautiful. I mentioned it on the weekend with Arthur Hill when we did the market outlook, that while copper was down big last week, Freeport-McMoRan went exactly the other way. And so if we just zoom in on Freeport to a daily chart here, you can see, you know, we need to break above this 1575 to kind of make these big moves. But last week was all this big push. While copper was getting weaker, these charts are starting to take off. And my big thing is when the miners start to move before the metal, that's very bullish. And you want to be aware of that. I need to go one more page back. Okay, so here's Aura Minerals, and I mentioned this in a blog article last week, but this one had a really nice thrust in July, August, pulled back and based, and now looks like it's ready to start its next move. Again, $2 stock. And not my typical trading style, but a lot of these are down in the dollar level, so have to kind of cover them off. Capstone Mining is in here. Again, pulling back a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but you know, we're talking pretty gentle, not not really a major pullback. This Altius Minerals shows up as precious metals, but it's also one of the copper listings. And so I would encourage you to just look at some of these different ones as they're starting to move. Here's Teck Resources, really big company in Canada. They have metallurgical coal, zinc, copper. They've got lots of stuff. Mining experts, I would say. And this cart, the 10-week is above the 40-week. It's been pushing gently higher, but I think if Freeport starts to break out, you'll probably see a lot of these other stocks, especially the majors, respond. Vale is another major, and you can see right at the top of the range here, it looks to me like it's ready to start twerking out to new highs, and you've got a scooter ranking that suggests price action's pretty good. MACD's basing just a little bit. The volume's right around average. Probably want to start to see some real acceleration, but we haven't got that yet. I would say the full stochastics is a bit of a pause. We're not going to go through all of these, but the point I want to make.
Question for you, Greg.
Yeah.
How do you find all the copper stocks if they don't have copper in their name?
Okay. So there's a couple of things I do. Like literally, I will go to the web and I'll say top 10 copper stocks or top 10 junior copper miners, and you'll get a bunch of different stocks here. But as you just scroll through, you can go into any one of these and look at them. Here's mining.com. That's probably going to give you pretty good list of these companies, and you just look at the names, and then you type in top 10 junior miners or top 10 junior mining stocks. And that's how I did it this morning. I just literally put together a quick list of 40 companies, and here's an opportunity to just sort on copper, and you can just go through and look at all of these. So it's a very simple business. Basically, if they have a mine, they're going to go need money, so that they create a stock and they get listed on the stock exchange. But just literally, use a Google search, and in under a half an hour, you're going to have a list of 30 to 40, and you're going to have most of them.
All righty.
So, and just Google copper miner, but you kind of need stocks, so you don't want privately listed companies and all that. Anyway, so I would encourage you to just quickly work through that way. But just going to continue on here just till we get through the ones that don't have a scooter anymore. I think it's like 20 of them. So we have, this Hudbay Minerals, great company, was $2.25, went to $11 within 1 year. It's been basing sideways for a year. If it started to turn up again here, this would break out to new 5-year highs. That's a pretty nice place to look. Here's Southern Copper. Looks like an uptrend to me, and it's been consolidating for 3 months. That doesn't scare me. That's just fine. As Arthur says, a pullback within an uptrend, and you're going to get a little bit, whatever, $40, $38, somewhere in that range, and off to the races. You can scan for full stochastics pulling back. Some of these stocks will pull back more than others, but getting a nice full stochastics low on a weekly chart, really a nice place to look for uptrends. And here's BHP. It's down at 30% or 40% on the full stochastics. What that means is the price is at 40% of the last 14 weeks in terms of a high to low range. If you started to get a positive cross here, you probably just want to buy the stock. Once it gets down, especially under that 50, in most cases, this is a pretty nice buying opportunity. Here it was, but we're in the middle of that gigantic downtrend where commodities bottomed here. I think we've started the new uptrend. Again, you still got to manage your trades, but I think looking for something that's pulled back and wants to start turning up again, excellent place to start. And the one thing right now is there's so many stocks in an uptrend. We're going to cover off scooter ranking a little bit later in the show, but when when so many stocks have run up, some of these average, like a stock that's just breaking out of a base now, still has a very low scooter ranking. It might be 30, 40, or 50. Whereas, for a long time, 75 was a great number, but so many stocks were running up, you needed to go down farther on the scooter scale to find something that was starting to turn up recently. Anyway, here's Rio, another one of the big miners, consolidating for 6 months in a very tight range, right? $3 to $4 here. And that that just looks like a great place. As soon as this starts to turn back up, I think you want to get on board. And the fact that Freeport start to break out already suggests looking sooner than later. And here's Excelsior Mining. So anyway, we're near the bottom of the list here, but I think, you know, all of these sideways consolidations after big run-ups like this, and these things could go, you know, another double easily, because they just got so beaten up in a big 6-year commodity bear market from 11 or 5-year from 2011 to 2016. So there's lots of opportunity to the upside here, I think. Anyway, with that, I think that covers them off, but I'm just going to go back to my summary tab here. And just, so these were some of the names I had pointed out. Oh, I specifically wanted to cover off Lundin Mining, but I'll let you look it up. The stock has had a huge gap down to support, you know, just let it kind of build a base here. But that one's almost a gift, because the actual area of the mine wasn't impaired, but the road in and out of the area of the mine that they were currently harvesting is damaged. And so once they get that fixed up, they'll be able to go back to that high grade ore that they were mining, and we should get a turn up. But right now they kind of marked down the stock, saying we're going to struggle to have any growth in production because of this mine side road. But it slid quite a bit of material. I think it was almost 700,000 tons or something slid down, and they can move 250 tons a day, I think is the number. So they're not going to take everything off the mine and try to build the road. They're going to take a couple of trucks and get that mine road cleaned up, and in the meantime continue to generate revenue from a different part of the mine. Anyway, that's a wrap for metals and mining and copper. And now we're going to jump into the 10 and 10 segment, and I have lots of stocks to pick with for Aaron. So we'll jump on that if you want to take the screen, Aaron.
All righty. Well, there we go. All right.
Perfect. So you wanted to start with ABT.
ABT. All right. I'm still slow at this, guys, since Tom normally does this, so we might go a little longer, but all right. So I immediately am looking at this trading range that has developed here, right in there. I think your opportunity might have been lost because it came down and tested the bottom of this range. We're about halfway back up toward it. I would say that it looks good here. Look in the thumbnail. You can see that the 5 is about ready to cross above that 20. So that gives you a short-term trend model buy, which is encouraging for a breakout. Also encouraging, look at the PMO. It is now decelerating. It wants to turn back up. And so I do like the fact that momentum does seem to be shifting. So I would be looking for a breakout here. Look at the margin between the 50 and 200-day EMAs. This stock is doing quite well. We're losing a little ground here on the scooter, but it's turning back up as well. And you know, a ranking of 60 or above is nothing to sneeze at. I think you'd agree, Greg. So I like the setup here. I just don't know if right now is the best place to get in. We could see it move up. I would be looking for that breakout, but there's certainly opportunity for it to turn back down here at the top of this range. It's been stuck in for a couple of months now. So let me save that.
Perfect. And then we're going to go to WDC, Walter Delta Charlie.
Okay.
I guess it's Whiskey Delta Charlie, but it's too early in the morning for that. So we'll go Walter Delta Charlie.
Okay. WDT. Send me back to my Air Force days.
Oh. Sorry, WDC Charlie at the
Charlie. There we go. Oh, really interesting. I know we all say this, right? When we get the 10 and 10 charts. Oh, that's interesting. I find every chart interesting, to be perfectly honest. So saying that is probably not giving you a whole lot of clue. All right, let's get that auto support resistance thing going here. I think I'd place it here. We did have that move above it, and then it came back down immediately. And then I would be looking here. We're now hitting that area of overhead resistance. I think when you're looking at these bottoms in here, I think it's a good way to draw where your support and resistance are. You can see intraday, though, it's poked back above, and the PMO looks really nice. The only thing I can complain about with the PMO is it's more straight. It hasn't actually curled up that much. OBV looks pretty good. And Scooter, yeah, it's in the basement, but it is trying to rise. So looking at this, I would wait because I would want to see it at least get above the 200-day EMA. I mean, price has been under that 200-day EMA. That's a worry. So I would want to see it establish itself above this area of overhead resistance a little bit more if I were considering it as a trade.
Okay. And then we have BZUN or BZUN, whichever you prefer.
Awesome. All right. Kind of in a same sort of look here with that rounded bottom. All right. Let's find some good support here. Actually, I think this, I'm going to just make this thicker because I can. And if you want to have it a little less bright, you can do that using, your opacity when you're doing the setup on the lines. I have one that's just lighter colored, so that way I don't have it busting through a lot of other things I want to look at. Plus, I think with having it thick, you can really see that resistance support line right here. So it managed the support, got itself back up above the 5-day EMA and the 20. Does seem to be establishing itself here. And I'm going to look at a little bit shorter term area of support here. And I think this trading range looks pretty good. You can see the 20 is not quite crossed above the 50, but to me, it would still show up on my scan because the 50 is above the 200. And we're just about ready to get a PMO buy signal in oversold territory. So I think this one's lined up pretty well. I could certainly see it getting itself up to at least these tops back here. No Scooter on that one. So let's do that. And we're on 3. So.
And then we're going to go with Yin, Y-I, Norman.
Okay. These are some new symbols I haven't seen.
This is 3 times directional up. So
yeah, these are always a little tricky. I'm going to look at this purely from a charting technical look, but typically I don't trade hedges in different, the double, the 3 times shares. I don't need that volatility. So, but if you like that, if you're using it as a hedge, there's that. All right. So at this point, I could see this gap. Let me get a regular trend line in here with some color. Okay. So I'm seeing that area of the gap that forms here. And we've got back above. Okay. This would be worrisome to me right away. The 20 is about ready to cross below the 50. Yes, the 50 is above the 200. But look at the PMO. It's now getting into negative territory. It does not look like it's decelerating at all. So I really wouldn't be expecting a breakout here. I don't even think we're going to hold that support level if we got above it. So I think optimistically, this could turn out to be some support. Looks like it was an island reversal. It's come back. I don't like it. I would want to wait for some better momentum setup. Even the OBV is looking pretty ugly with the tops declining and the bottoms declining there. So not anything I'd be interested in, I have to say. And that was number 4. And next.
Okay, how about SLX, which is the steel ETF?
Oh, yes, we get a lot of requests for this. Generally from one particular person, but I'm perfectly happy to help you out. All right. Wow, interesting V bottom like that. We've got the move off of it. Just got a trend model. Let's see. I'm going to show you how to use a couple of these other features. So we just got that trend model buy signal. There we go. Which is a good sign. Of course, we had the short-term trend model give us a sign even earlier, and we saw the PMO give us an even earlier sign as it bottomed here in oversold territory. We're now seeing a nice healthy scooter. volume is going the right way. So let's look at the support and resistance areas. Okay. I like to make it fat. There we are. Okay, so I think this is a pretty, as far as near term too, I think that's a good area of overhead resistance. I would be watching that at this point. I see these positive indications on this chart. So I would expect a breakout above this area. I'm going to save these changes, but I want to look at the weekly chart real quick. I think that's number 5, right? Okay. Let's just look quickly at the weekly chart because I think it might be interesting. Oh, that's Tom's. I don't want Tom's. I want mine. There we go. I should add the thumbnail though, huh? Everybody's like, get Tom to put the thumbnail on. All right, this is a really nice chart pattern. The PMO is starting to turn up. It's been moving mostly sideways, which is understandable. It was a pretty, there wasn't a whole lot of acceleration on this rally, and so that tends to flatten out the PMO. I'm not going to draw it in because I already drew the charts. But notice this overhead resistance, right? And then the rising bottoms trend line coming up to meet that. That is an ascending triangle, and those are bullish patterns. So I would be expecting a breakout, and you can see we've seen it get higher. So I'm not sure how you feel about steel these days, but I'm liking that chart. So
no, I like steel. I think they're starting to move. You bet.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of all the miners here. Okay, we've asked for token Canadian stock in there. We're going to go with Enbridge. It's listed on both sides, but we'll do the Canadian side. ENB.TO.
All right. There we go. Yeah, I do try and throw at least one in there for our Canadian friends. All right, so let's look at this. And again, my auto support resistance. Okay, there's a clear area of what was once support. And we're now back above that after having this correction. Got the PMO buy signal pretty timely, I would have to say. If you look back here, we got it after this this day. Of course, you would have had to suck up this move back down, but that pullback, but look at the gap up and it's continuing higher. Looks pretty nice. I am seeing, so we've been talking about ascending triangles. Let's get this back here. Seems like a lot of them showing up right now. Another bullish pattern. You can see the 20 is about ready to go above the 50-day EMA. Price is hanging right there. I would look for it to go above that 200-day EMA, although, you know, we've had some struggles with that, and we could see the PMO is getting somewhat overbought. The 50 is below the 200, and it really hasn't bottomed that much. But I'm liking this short-term pattern. I think you could certainly make a case for a move up to this level at 52.50. So I think that's reasonable, but you really, I'd be just a little nervous here about that 200-day EMA because that has been some serious resistance, and the PMO is getting overbought.
Okay, and when you're ready.
Okay. Okay,
we're going to go with SRNE.
SRNE. Sorrento Therapeutics. Go straight into the annotate tool. I'm getting a little bit better at this. Now this, you know, we were talking about ascending triangles. This sure looks like a descending triangle to me. These patterns can be, okay, so that was, I'm not going to draw it from there. I'm going to draw it from here. That's a better look. But you could still, you know, draw it back to here. Because the idea is you do have that declining tops trend line that's at the top where we are getting that breakout. Again, we still have these issues with price being under 200-day EMAs, and that's always a concern for me. But if this chart pattern is a true descending triangle, you could expect a move almost the length of the end of that triangle. I'm trying to remember the math name. So anyway, I think we're getting that breakout. I would watch that 200-day EMA though. For me, I would want to see it get above it, and the PMO is lining up nicely. So if we get the PMO crossover, and a 200-day EMA break, I think you've got a nice run for Sorrento Therapeutics. All right. So far, I don't own any of these, so that's not much to disclose there.
I should have mentioned that I do own some of the mining stocks that I showed today. So
yeah, we do try and let you guys know. It's only fair, right? It's a professional thing to do. We have to, especially Greg and I, who are members of the CMT. Okay, so what's the next one? Number 8.
We're going to go with MRK, Merck.
Okay. All right. Wow, it's had a difficult drop there at the end of October. Not a good Halloween for Merck. Okay. Auto support resistance. All right, so we've been in this trading range right here since that gap down. And this area you could see not only are it's a short-term area of overhead resistance, but it also lines up with this bottom back here at the end of 2016. I like seeing that breakout, but if you look here, that's the next area of overhead resistance, and that matches right up with that 50-day EMA. So we've got the PMO buy signal, but that 50 is well below the 200. And if you recall, when I talked about bull bear market rules, you honestly shouldn't be expecting a bullish pattern to necessarily execute or to get a really good move out of something like this with an overhead resistance breakout. But I do have that PMO buy signal that supports what's going on here. The tops on the OBV are rising with price tops, so that's a nice confirmation there. But again, that's going to be a heavy area of overhead resistance. So if you're holding on to it, I would be watching that area very closely. If you're considering a buy, I don't know if I would go that direction. All right. I don't know if I've been numbering these right, but I think that was 8.
9. Yep.
9? 9.
And then YY.
Okay. And here we go. Let's go annotate. All right. All right. Nice the way it hit support and bounced back off. I do like that. At this point, it is right on that 20-day EMA area of support. I do have a PMO sell signal, and it is turning down. It looked like it was going to turn up with that rally move, but it's already starting back down with its momentum. I'm not really particularly liking this, but the fact that we do have such a strong scooter and we are seeing that OBV in the short term rising, this is a strong stock. So I wouldn't, if we do get that pullback to continue, I wouldn't expect it to break down below that support area. I'd like to see it go down here and test that support area one more time at that 50-day EMA, just so it could unwind this PMO just a little bit more and give us some room so as to not be sitting in that oversold area. So I'm looking for that pullback, and then hopefully I would see a move up to the 125. And that is 10?
I think so.
Okay. I'll have to go in. I think I numbered something wrong, but I'll fix that later. All righty. And that concludes our 10 and 10. And I would say it is time now to move on to our scooter movers. And let me get to that. There we go. So yeah, we're going to look at our scooter movers now, and I'm going to pass it back over to Greg. And he's going to show you this is the Stockcharts technical ranking. Highly recommend you go check it out in Chart School. So you can see how the weighting goes, but it leans more toward the intermediate to longer term. So anyway, I'm going to pass it over to you, Greg, so you can show us that report and talk a little bit more about the scooter.
Okay, so first of all, just to make sure everybody can get here, so from the members tab, over on the right-hand side in the control center, depending on which level you've got, but I think all members get access to the scooter reports. And so you can go in here and there's a drop down menu at the top. And that's pretty important depending on the type of trading you like to do. If you only want to do large cap stocks, then you're going to focus there. And the way the scooters are, so what the scooter does is it uses 6 different technical analysis measurements like 200-day, 50-day, some rate of change stuff. And we create a number for each stock. And then we rank which stock has the best number at the end of the day. And so everything starts at 99.9 and works its way down. So this means it's better than 99.9% of the stocks right now, and works its way lower. Now, if you go look at a chart like, I'll just put up NVIDIA, it's had a high scooter ranking for over 2 years, right? Beautiful. Just really, really nice run from $20 to $220. And, I don't want to make it sound easy. It does all this for a long period of time. And then all of a sudden it goes on this long run, and then it's been there ever since. So really, I think this is the longest scooter run I've ever seen on a stock. So just to give you an idea, it rates how well a stock is doing against its peers. And so with the scooter, you can first of all get this table, but you can also press the change button. And when you do that, it shows you which stocks are moving up quickly today. And you can also select a different time period. But in general, if we're just looking, so here's Freeport McMoran. Remember, we saw that chart earlier today, and it's breaking above that area of resistance. Here's Transocean, which is a drilling stock for offshore, and we can see that the scooter ranking is improving, but it's still very weak. It's only at 40. And so even though it's one of the bigger movers today, it's still on the weak side. So I like to look at scooters right in around this 75 level or 76 level typically. With the market as strong as it has been lately, some of the breakouts are happening at lower levels. So anyway, we'll go with, say, Nucor here and just give you an idea. So there's a nice breakout right around the 75 level on the scooter and breaking out to new 9-month highs. Really nice, obvious place. This is the steel business. We've been talking about mining all morning. So you've got the miners that do the iron ore, and then you've got the actual steel processors, that type of thing. So if you look through this list here, we see, some materials stocks starting to show up on this list, a few energy stocks trying to make this list. So some of the big movers today are in those areas. Now, if we just sort it based on the scooter itself, we can see there's not as many of these material stocks at the top yet. And some of the cyclicals have moved up to the top of the range. It's that change in trend that we're looking for. And one of the best places to find that is to use the change tool and just keep an idea of what's moving up. So as you look through here, the only thing I like to do is I basically just take this and kind of quickly look at the scale. And Potash is another one that was moving up today. So, that's a nice 9-month breakout on Mosaic. I think you just want to go jump on that kind of a stock and see what's going on. The scooter's at 65, but this is a nice uptrend starting here. You're breaking through base. You're back above the 200-day moving average. There's nothing not to like about that. And if we go to Potash, the stock's involved in a merger with Agrium, and it's just kind of being completed. So it's breaking out to the upside. Agrium has quite a bit of fertilizer manufacturing, so it's breaking out to the upside. So there's a trend going on through all of these that are starting to show. One of the questions on the chat box was, Greg, do you only invest in commodity stocks? No, what I like to do is I actually like to have some of my portfolio in everything. So I've got some consumer staples. I have some technology stocks. I have some gold and oil stocks. But I trade around. So I'm not really looking to hold, like, one of the things about commodity stocks is they, if you look at a 5-year chart, you don't usually see any commodity stock with a 5-year chart that goes straight up. So you have to move in and move out. If you want to hold a bank like Bank of America, just to pick a name, it's been a pretty strong stock, and you could probably hold it with a lot less. It's not going to have the seasonal cyclical swings that a commodity stock will have. So if you don't want to trade as much, then commodities are more difficult, but you can still find big moves in commodities, much like biotechs, where they go on a really long run, make a couple 100%, and then you sell it. There's nothing wrong with that, rather than waiting in some of these other sectors that don't work out so well. So in general, I think some of the fastest movers are showing up. I'm not seeing, there's one bank or financial in here. There's a couple, but for the most part, I'm noticing a lot of utilities, a lot of industrial, maybe just what my eyes are tuned for, energy, materials. So I would say more raw materials businesses, the more there's less technology showing up in here. Here's F5 Networks. That one's starting to break out, so that one looks pretty good. Foot Locker, the whole apparel sector was really beaten up. So you're bottom fishing there if you don't mind trading that. Simon Property Group, they own the retail malls. So the real question is, can it get through that 165 level? It's been basing quite a while. One of the changes in trend I'm noticing on the retail properties is that the malls are starting to put a lot more high-end restaurants right in the mall. Might be on the outside edge of the mall, but it's they're attracting people to come later in the evening or different times of day, and not so much retail, but where people would go to spend money at a retail level out in the neighborhood. They're putting in higher-end restaurants and that kind of thing. So, so maybe that's how Simon Property Group fixes the problem they're going to have with retail when Amazon takes them out. There's still nice charts in all of the financials, but I feel like they've run quite a bit. And one of the things to notice, let's just go click on Wells Fargo. If you look at, here was December 2016, and you saw in the first week of December, remember we had an interest rate right around mid-month there. We didn't really make any progress till this year. So, you were up whatever, a buck or two after that initial thrust into early December, heading into the interest rate change. Maybe a better gauge of that is JP Morgan. I should do that on a different chart. JP Morgan. And, so coming in here really went until June or July, and it started to put pressure on the top side, and now it's been running up nicely. Don't get me wrong, these are still nice trends. This is beautiful, bottom left to top right. I'm just saying that as we headed into the interest rate change, a lot of these stocks kind of leveled off for 3 to 6 months, 9 months, whatever. And so just be cognizant of that. We might be buying them kind of right near the top here. Aaron, if you'd like to take it back and talk about some of the scooter movers you've seen. In general, what I'm seeing today is that a lot of the materials, industrials, energy stocks are making some moves.
Yes, let's go. I want to show everybody the way to get to them on the member homepage. And then I'm going to save a little time for mailbag because I do have a question or two, one for you and one for me. So, all right. So, what you can do, this is from the member homepage, of course, and the control panel. You can select market movers. But one of the things besides top 10 and, the high volume movers, you can do the scooters here too. And I think many of you guys have seen that, but the top 10 are, the 99s, the 99ers. They're up toward the top. And so you can see who the big movers are. The strongest amongst their peer groups, I should say. Those aren't movers. They're the top of the list. So, First Solar is doing well, though we're seeing a little bit of a pullback today. Urban Outfitters, again, it does look like it wants to pull back, and that does look like a shooting star at the top of a rising trend. I'd be interested in that candlestick at the end of the day. Michael Kors seems to be consolidating sideways at this point. So that's how you can get to, the strong ones, the ones with the high batting average, as I think you've said, or Greg, or I don't know who coined the phrase, probably you, the higher batting average. And that's one of the reasons you do want to see the ones at the top and consider them as candidates, just because they're strong. They have a good batting average already. They've been in a nice trend, or, amongst their peers. These are the ones you want to go find. The next one I'm going to show you is the top up and how you can get there. And again, these are the big movers. These are the ones with the big changes at this point. And you can just go hover right over. Look at that symmetrical triangle at this point. Could be a pennant on a flag. In fact, I might call this up on my daily chart just to see. Yeah, very similar. There's that, I think you could make that case for that ascending triangle as well, but a flag with a pennant on it. The only thing I'd be a little concerned about would be the fact that we have a very overbought PMO at this point. But you can see that nice scooter move, volumes hanging in there at this point. So the big question, of course, is whether it can really make it over that gap over at resistance. So anyway, I just wanted to show everybody how to get to that. And next, I think we'll go ahead and do our mailbag and wrap up. And here we go. All right. So one of the questions that we did get was, chart styles. Somebody said, oh, I love the thumbnail. Well, of course you do. You have to love the thumbnail, except for Tom Bowley. So the way you want to do this is, I'm going to just take us to some random chart here. We looked at that one. Let's look at map. There we go. All right, so this is what I love. Obviously, this is my regular chart style. This is my default. So set up your default to include the thumbnail, and then it'll always come up every single time because that's your default. You can see right here. So yeah, you just save it as the default and away you go. So that's how you'll always get the thumbnail. If you want to have everything look like mine, which, I do have
We're not viewing your...
Oh, no. Thank you.
Right,
we're on your slideshow, not on the...
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Here, I'll take this one from you, and then you can go find yours.
I got it. Here we are. Okay. So yes, as I was saying, so fix up your chart the way you like it, and then save that as your default. And that'll always come up with the thumbnail and colors or, whatever, indicators you want to use, etc. And again, if you like my chart style, you can just go down into the drop down, and there it is. Of course, it's set up a bit smaller here because it's not for viewing on the Market Watcher screen, but that's how you can get my chart style. And then with any of these chart styles or any chart on stockcharts.com, any chart, click on it and you can see the setups on the bottom. So I get a lot of questions. Oh, I like those indicators, those short-term indicators. How do I get them on my chart? Go to the DP blog, go find the chart, and you can click on it. And here we go. Any of these that you want. So for example, if you want my climactic indicators, it'll bring it up. Click to see the live version. And then what I do in order to save the annotations is I go in and maybe just do a small annotation, and then that will save it to our chart list. So I'm going to put it in here for today. And there we go. And now that's included in my own chart list. And I can go down here and check the indicator settings. How do I get the up-down pair? Well, there you go. What are the actual symbols? The exclamation point symbols are the decision point. Most of those are decision point indicators. So that's how you get there. That's how you can see. So I highly recommend you check that out, especially if you're liking a chart. If you like Greg's chart style, whichever one, that's how you change it. So that was my question. The question I had for you is whether, we looked at all those copper and mining stocks, Greg. Are those intermediate term or long term, buy and holds, or what is the time horizon?
Well, I don't think I don't think commodities are ever buy and hold, but if you get a nice pullback on a copper chart on a weekly, like as an example, I like to use the full stochastics on a weekly chart, and it pulls back to the level 20. To me, that is just a fabulous place to look for opportunities if you like to buy pullbacks, if you want to buy breakouts like Freeport-McMoRan. Again, my whole thesis for next year is that we're probably going to see weakness in the US dollar and strength in commodities. And if that transpires, then a lot of the moves that I expect will be pretty significant. Mm-hmm. A lot of these stocks have been beaten up for years, and they've pruned their cost structure immensely, so they have huge upside available to them. Perhaps I could just steal the screen share for
Of
just a
course.
sec, and I'll show you what I mean by a pullback. So if we take whatever, I'm in Michael Coors here right now, but I like to look at the scooter ranking. Okay, so this stock is just starting to perform, but you can have, let's go pick Tech Resources just because it's a stock on both sides, so it'll talk to Canadian and US investors. So, you get these nice little pullbacks. The stock is just going sideways, a nice little pullback, and it bounces out of there. And, this doesn't look like much, but it's $20 to $24 so far. It's just gone back into the overbought thing. And, again, all of these mining stocks to me have been basing on the show with Arthur on the weekend called Market Outlook. This is a great place to look for a turn up, and we're starting to see that happen. If I go into the daily chart, these are just setting up here 3-month basis. If you're a turtle trader buying 55-day highs or whatever, this is, the typical sort of setup that you'd like to see. And all of a sudden it starts to accelerate out of there. I just had Agrium up earlier. I own some of Agrium, but what you see here is the same sort of thing where it's basing sideways and it starts to take off. Well, on the full stochastics, you might only get these opportunities once a year, twice a year. But the bottom line is when you're starting to get these, especially in commodities, these big oversold conditions, and then they start to rally, it's not always you end up, as George Lane likes to say, I've spent my life buying full stows with a stop. And so if the trade doesn't work out, he's out. But the bottom line is when you start to see some of these big divergences, this can be a really nice place to get on board. This stock is just starting to break out to new 52-week highs, new 5-year highs. I don't know. I don't want to, again, this was a nice big uptrend for a year, then a downtrend for a year, an uptrend for a year, a downtrend for 6 months. So commodities are not buy and hold, but these moves are $74 to $108. That's 25%. You can make money riding up that sort of trend. So I like those sorts of moves. And if we go to Freeport-McMoRan, just to stay on some of these miners, it recently just had a full stow dip down under 50 and start to turn up. When I was describing BHP, I was mentioning that same sort of trade. So I like it when the scooter's either strong and climbing out of the hole, or on these commodities trying to buy the double dip or the single dip. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. So stops are important. But, again, this is a business where if you don't like paper cuts, you should find a new business. So you put on a trade, you set your stop. And the nice part about trading on a full stow that's low is your stop goes relatively close. And, in this case here, probably would have stopped you out. But then the trade starts, a month later, turns around and starts to work and break out again. You have a choice. Do you want to buy that or not? There's lots of opportunities, but, Valiant has just set up. There's been a whole bunch of them. Amazon gave us a buy signal with a full stow pullback. Earlier this year, and that was an okay ride from 930 to 1210 in 6 months, $100 or 10% or something. So these are nice thrusts, but I like to use these pullbacks, especially if you're a commodity trader. But again, that breakout in Freeport or something like that, I think those are awesome opportunities setting up. And especially if we start to see the rest of the group participate, BHP, Rio Tinto, Vale, when all of them are above their 10-week moving average, I think you just want to buy. And if they start to go below their 10-week moving average, then you want to let them go. But typically a pretty good place to stay on board.
All right. Very good. We're actually down to the finish here. I want to thank you, Greg, for joining me today while Tom was out. That was very nice of you. And
You're
tomorrow
welcome.
we do have Arthur Hill. He is going to come in and co-host with me. Additionally, Tom will actually be back Thursday, but on Friday, he will be doing a workshop on price support and resistance. So you really won't want to miss that. So in closing, I would just like to thank you all for joining Greg and I today. Please complete that survey, though, as you exit the show. We really like to get that feedback. We use your comments and survey responses. We truly do to shape our future shows. So as a reminder as well, we are here Monday through Friday from noon to 1:30. Have a great day, everybody. And before I drop you, Greg, what were you thinking about the market? Up, down this week? Where are you expecting it?
We're hitting new highs on the north of the border, hitting new highs south of the border. When you're hitting new highs, you're in an uptrend. So ride the trend.
Yeah, absolutely. I did tell everybody I'm bullish on the market this week. Hopefully we will be closing higher. It's looking pretty good at this point. So again, thanks, Greg. I really appreciate you being here. And to everybody else, hope you join us tomorrow while Arthur Hill is here. It'll be a great show. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.